most colorful place in Ernakulam, known for its beautiful beach, Chinese fishing nets, the ruins of ancient Fort Emmanuel, the destination of choice for the discerned tourist. Fort Kochi started out as a humble fishing village in pre-colonial days. It bears the stamp of the Portuguese, the Dutch, and then the British. Foreign influences have shaped the architecture and molded the social life of Fort Kochi for 444 years. It all began when the Raja of Kochi gave the territory to the Portuguese in the year 1503. A fort was constructed near the waterfront. In fact, the cannon set in the fort's wall can still be seen on the causeway, where tourists, morning walkers, and the beach yoga group meet to walk, exercise, and enjoy the sea air every morning. Cruise liners sailed regally into the harbor, watched eagerly by the hoteliers of the area, who know that huge numbers of tourists are going to zip around in their luxury coaches. This means brisk business for traders, big and small. Major activities on the Kochi harbor started towards the end of the 15th century when explorer Vasco da Gama landed in Calicut on the Malabar coast in quest of black gold. The pepper, the cardamom, cloves and cinnamon saw Mattancherry traders essential to pep up shifting pepper, bland meals and dull menus back in Europe. The Raja of Cochin graciously allowed the Portuguese to build a fort and a church. They built a fort at the mouth of the river with coconut tree trunks bound with iron bands. It is from the name Fort Emmanuel that Fort Kochi derives the first part of its name. Inside the fort, the Portuguese erected a church made of wood. Later, this was replaced with brick and mortar. Remnants of the fort can still be seen if you visit the Indo-Portuguese Museum. A quarter of a century later, Vasco da Gama, on his second visit to Cochin, died on Christmas Eve, 1524, and was buried in the church. Later, however, his body was exhumed and shipped to Portugal, where it was buried for the second time in the monastery of Geronimo in Lisbon. The Portuguese remained in control for 160 years. In the next century, in 1663, the Dutch gained the upper hand, and the church passed into their possession. The church was renovated a century later, and when the British captured Cochin in 1795, they changed the name to St. Francis Church. They also destroyed much of the old Fort Emmanuel. The impressive war memorial was put up in 1920 in memory of the soldiers from the area who fell in the First World War. Even today, on Remembrance Day, every December, the mayor of Cochin and the other dignitaries lay a wreath in memory of the gallant departed. The area is a veritable confluence of many communities: Muslims who control the fish trade in these parts, Gujaratis who have made themselves very much at home here, Catholics and Anglo-Indians, and more. Many groups fled from trouble in their hometowns to find refuge in Cochin. Konkanis from northern coastal areas who sought refuge under the Cochin Raja. Jains whose temple stands in a quiet corner of Mattancherry to this day, dedicated to the 15th Jain Tirthankar Dharmanant Ji. The synagogue in Jew Street, Mattancherry, is a great attraction, featuring a floor covered with Chinese willow pattern files, rare Belgian chandeliers, and giant Torah scrolls. Now that most of the Jewish families have made the Aliyah, the pilgrimage back to Israel, leaving barely a minyan or quorum necessary to hold the weekly Sabbath services in the synagogue. The synagogue stands testimony to the hospitality of the Jews received in India, where they fled after the destruction of Jerusalem. Jew Street is one of the most quaint and interesting byways of this tourist-haunted area, and its many Kashmiri shops featuring carpets, clothes, crafts, and pashmina shawls, which is fascinating to the casual visitor. The antique shops of the area are a collector's delight, displaying a range of genuine antiques and a fair number of reproductions. The area is alive with the smell of spices lingering in the air. Pepper, cardamom, cinnamon, and cloves, coriander, fire-red chilies, and mace are all available in and around Jew Street in great abundance. The Dutch palace in Mattancherry was originally built by the Portuguese. Revamped by the Dutch, it is not much of a place, just a double-storied building with a nalugette, a central courtyard. The main hall upstairs was once used for the coronation of succeeding Cochin kings. There are many ancient murals depicting scenes from Ramayana, which are worth going to see. Fort Kochi is known for its quaint shops, restaurants, hotels, and its architectural landmarks. Its churches are legendary. Santa Cruz Cathedral, for example, is one of the oldest churches in Cochin and in the rest of India as well. Built in 1506 by the first Portuguese viceroy Francisco de Almeida, it was desecrated by the Dutch in 1663 and used as an armory. Rebuilt in 1905, a granite pillar of the old cathedral still stands in the corner of the present Basilica. The architecture of the cathedral, as it now stands, is a blend of Indo-European and Gothic style. Another famous landmark of the area is the Indo-Portuguese Museum, which is housed in the Bishop's Palace. Established through the efforts of the late Dr. Joseph Curitra, Bishop of Kochi, it protects rich cultural artifacts and showcases Portuguese influence on Fort Kochi. Among the pieces on display are a section of 16th century altar made of teak from the Church of Our Lady of Hope, Vipin, a chasuble from Bishop's House, and a 17th century processional cross, made of silver and wood from Santa Cruz, Basilica. Many signboards on Beach Road point to the Dutch cemetery. Flanked by high walls, this mysterious cemetery has large tombstones and is believed to be infested with snakes. The tombstones are created using Dutch architecture. It stands testimony to the number of Dutch people who visited this corner of India and now have been laid to rest. Consecrated in 1724, it is maintained by St. Francis Church. Next to St. Francis Church is what remains of the parade ground, which is still the central point of the town. There used to be an expanse of 4 acres where the Portuguese, the Dutch, and the British had once conducted military parades. Now surrounded by rain trees, it used to be encircled by breadfruit trees. The trees of Fort Kochi are spectacular. The approach to the town, with its avenue of forest giants, generally rain trees, with lichen clinging to the branches, signal cooler air and a greener ambience. The grandmother of these trees stands in one corner of Bailey ground. Most days its wide, sweeping canopy shelters young drivers and motorcyclists practicing to get a license. It is absolutely beautiful at night that people flock from Ernakulam to see the illuminated tree. Among the other sights of Fort Kochi is Brunton Boatyard, a hotel with an interesting history. Originally from a boatyard owned by George Brunton and his sons, it monopolized the shipbuilding trade and finally became a threat to the shipbuilders of Britain. They protested to the Admiralty that every warship was made in India, and this led to the recline of the once bustling boatyard. now renovated and turned into a luxury hotel, you can still see the high ceilings and old-fashioned fans. Fort Kochi has witnessed history being seamlessly woven into the fabric of modern life. For instance, a heritage bungalow built in the year 1808 is now functioning as a Delta study, a high school. More famous than all these landmarks are the traces of China's hand and the influence on the Cochin coast. The Cheena Vala, or the Chinese fishing nets, are the gigantic version of the fishing style brought to Kerala about 500 years ago by the Chinese. Similar nets are seen in Vietnam, but nets of this size exist only in Fort Kochi. The Portuguese used locally sourced wood and carpentry skills to put up these picturesque of nets which work on the principle of balance. They are great tourist attractions and are operated by the Latin Catholics of the area. The modern causeway that runs along the beach is very popular with locals and tourists alike. As soon as dawn breaks, the beach and the causeway come alive with brisk morning walkers, yoga enthusiasts, photographers all in their wedding finery, dogs, crows, and seabirds, cruise ships, merchant ships, cargo vessels, tugboats, and dredgers sail past on the way to Cochin Harbor, giving the viewers on the beach an ever-changing panorama. At night, the blue skies and the scudding clouds vanish and the beach is lit up, giving it a special charm. The lights are reflected in the water, and on the weekends, there are crowds buying ice cream or peanuts or spicy pineapple chunks from the small carts that spring up all along the causeway beside the beach. In the distance, the lights of the Waterfront container terminal cast a glow over the dark sea. From the middle of December 2014 till the end of March 2015, the beach also featured 3 installations titled Edge Effect, a collateral project part of the art exhibition, the Kochi-Muziris Biennale 2014. The international art show, held once every 2 years, is being organized in Fort Kochi and Mattancherry for the second time running. Titled World Explorations, it is curated by Jitish Kalat and showcases the work of hundreds of artists and sculptors. The inclusion of the name Muziris, linked with that of Kochi, is a reminder of the old Port Muziris. Cochin played second fiddle to Kodungalur or Muziris until a great flood in 1341 AD reduced the importance of Muziris. Cochin's natural harbor made it a gateway for trade, and soon Arab and Chinese ships began to come to Cochin, bringing silks, ceramics, and honey in exchange for pepper termed black gold and other spices. How did Cochin get its name? Some say that Chinese trader named it after Cochin, after Cochin, China, in South Vietnam. Others feel the name derives from the term Kochari, meaning small harbor. As for Mattancherry, the trade center of Old Cochin, it probably gets its name from Madan, meaning cow, the emblem of the Raja of Cochin, and Cherry or Old Town.